Hello everyone and welcome back to Video Editing 1 with Professor Harris. Today we're going through MC110 Lesson 14, Packaging and Exporting. At some point in your program's lifecycle, you'll go through the approval process, often 2 or more times before final output. Once approved, you'll prepare the sequence and output to meet delivery specifications. In this lesson, you'll delve into the workflows and associated tools you can use to enhance the review process and achieve successful output. Today we're going to be working in the MC110 project, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that. And while we wait, let's look at the goals for this lesson. Goals for this lesson are to add the time code burn-in effect and a watermark to review a review copy, use full screen playback, customize the time code window tool, prepare a sequence to meet delivery specifications, change the start time code, set up export templates, and output the finished sequence. Let's get into it. We'll start this lesson by exploring the review process. As mentioned in the intro, your program will undergo a review process. Since there's no set formula for this, experience will help you learn what to expect. To get you started, let's explore this a little bit. During many productions, program structure and tone reviews start early in the editing process. Once approved, subsequent reviews take place as the piece develops. The whole process culminates into one last review to sign off on the final version of your project. As you approach reviews, keep the following in mind. Number 1, every project gets reviewed. Either the director, producer, or client review it before public release, or the viewing public does after. This fact makes it preferable to always have your work reviewed while you can still improve it. If you you can't change it once you send it out the door, although there are alternate versions and alternate endings that we do see released. I know that the I Am Legend movie, for example, had multiple endings, and they're making a sequel, or if they finished a sequel now, that goes off one of the alternate endings because the theatrical release was not as good as what I think the fans wanted and the story that they wanted to go forward with. So make sure that you're getting it right before you send it out the door, because obviously it's going to heavily affect your project and the way that people perceive it. Number 2, that no 2 review sessions are alike, and no 2 reviewers look at your work with the same perspective, goals, or opinions. Sometimes you'll need to fulfill a reviewer's change request. Other times you'll weigh a reviewer's opinion and prioritize what to address and what you can disregard. As you consider change, requests, and opinions, remember the following. Number 1, with a film, the director dictates the change, always. After all, the film is their vision, and they hired you to fulfill that vision and nothing else. With other programming, the producer carries creative responsibility for the project, so you'll want to address all feedback and change requests there. Number 3, with some client work, you may be able to guide the client and dissuade some changes, but ultimately, you need to make the changes they feel strongly about, regardless of how it will change or affect the piece or program that you're working on. Regardless of who reviews your project or when, it's wise to listen to all feedback and opinions. You never know what great idea might come to you from somewhere else. So, why not take advantage of Media Composer as a non-destructive editing system and try out an idea that someone pitched you? Time permitting, of course. You don't want to do things that are outside of your time. Going back to the third point, though, with client work, when it comes to clients and trying to dissuade their decisions, I said this before in previous lessons, but if they feel really strongly about a change, or if they want a project to go a certain direction, absolutely execute the change that they want, but make your own version and have that as a backup copy or an extra sequence. You've got infinite amount of sequences you can make, essentially, and so why not take advantage of that? Why not keep making different versions? And oftentimes your expertise will shine through, and they may end up going with your version, especially if it comes out better than the one that they had in mind. Okay, quick note here from Avid. Not sure if your edit is working, have someone else watch it. Even someone who is not professionally trained in video or video editing can help you see what's wrong immediately with your project. A fresh set of eyes will always help you notice what's different or what's not working. This is 100% true. I know that lots of people in many different career paths, if they're struggling with something, they'll show it to their significant other or their spouse. And sometimes the spouse or just a third party in general can have that clarity that you for some reason can't see after 72 hours of staring at your computer screen. So keep that in mind as you go forward. Don't discredit and don't discount those around you for having creative vision. Okay, so as you may already know, a screening or review session may take place live or in person or remotely. Or you may submit a video files to stakeholders to review on screen on their own time. The latter scenario may involve uploading a file to YouTube or Vimeo or some other video hosting platform for them to access it from. Or it may mean working off of a third-party service that provides advanced markup and feedback tools. During live sessions, multiple stakeholders often participate. For example, the reviewers will watch the program from start to finish with no interruptions and take notes with timecode references. Then they'll discuss their notes while the editor adds markers and comments at the approximate timecode location. After the session, the editor will prioritize and fulfill the change requests. So remember, we were using the marker tools. You're going to watch all the way through your segment. You're going to add those markers. Well, they're going to watch it all the way through. They're going to put down time notes or time code, timestamps. And then they're going to go through with you. You're going to make markers. And then when you're back at the editing table, you're going to review those markers in your timeline and make the necessary adjustments. Regardless of how you review the review or screening process unfolds, the end goal is the same. Get feedback from the stakeholders on how you can improve the program or how you can improve your project. Hopefully, this brief preview helps you better prepare for reviews. Now, let's look at the tools for both live sessions and uploaded videos that will enhance this experience. All right, let's look at some tools for review. During this section, you'll look at several features you can use to facilitate the review process: the timecode burn-in effect, the timecode window tool, and the full screen playback option. We'll start with adding a timecode burn-in. Does the timecode burn-in effect sound familiar? You added the timecode burn-in effect template to the anesthesia string-out sequence that we assembled in Lesson 4. You added this to help the director identify favorite takes. So during the review process, you can add a timecode burn-in effect to an edited sequence so that stakeholders, when they review it on their screenings, can take down those timecodes to then send to you with critiques or requests or adjustments that need to be made. Here's how you add the default timecode burn-in effect. So first, we're going to add a new track to our timeline. We only have one. We have a V1 track here. Let's make a V2. Bonus points if you remember how to do that with the keyboard shortcuts. That is Control Y or Command Y, or you can just right-click in your timeline window and you can do create or add new, and then timeline video track with, I can show you Command Y. All right, so new video track. Cool. So all right, now we have our V2. Let's deselect all our other tracks because we don't need these selected when we add our timecode burn-in here. Let me deselect these, and we'll turn off sync locks because I don't need my sync locks on either. Don't need to mute or solo anything. All right, and then making sure our monitor is selected on the top. Then we're going to enable the attract check, and then we're going to add the timecode burn-in effect, which is in the generator category. So we'll come over to our effects palette. We'll go to generator. We can see the timecode burn-in. We'll just drag this onto our filler on our V2 track. And then we can activate the effects workspace by clicking the effects mode button here. And then once we have the effects mode button here, we can change some settings. So as you can see on my screen, the timecode burn-in displays a sequence timecode. By default, this is MAS TC1, so that's master timecode 1, again by default. So you can customize the appearance and include up to 4 different timecode displays, so you have options for adding more. To customize the timecode burn-in effect, if needed, we can enable the grid button in the effect editor to use the safe title in our box as a guide. So if I click this little guy here, that's my grid. We can see this grid and we can see different where our actual burn-in, our timecode burn-in appears. And so for instance, this is kind of a little low. So if we want to adjust this, or if we wanted to, instead of using our display 1, we could set display 4. So it's a little higher. We could disable our display 1. We could use it starting from this position instead. We also have this text field. I'll talk about this in a second though. We can expand the display 1 group or whichever one we're going to use, and then we can use the appearance subgroups. So if I expand display 4 here, we get these subgroups that we can customize here in appearance. So we have position, text, background. With position, it's font size and pixels, so we can drag this left and right. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Come on. It's a little bit laggy. There we go. Now it's working. So if we wanted something a little bit bigger, we could do that. What else can we do? We have text, we have background. So if we wanted to change, for instance, this is right now set to black. If I double click this, I could change it to another color for some reason if we wanted to. So now it's red. And a lot of this has to do with not only for screenings. I mean, you don't want to make it distracting. So by default, it should definitely be set to black. Otherwise, unless your director directs you otherwise. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of this is one, for review, obviously, so they have the time code so they can see it. And two, so that if somehow this gets leaked or somebody steals it, let's say you were giving this to a client for review and you didn't want them to just take your work, you could put the time code not so big but smaller, and you could add text to the screen, additional text. You could change the text color, but we could add additional text to this. So let's activate our text window here, and I could add the name of maybe my editing company, and then I could increase or decrease that. I've got my appearance slider here, and I could increase this. Let's increase it quite a bit. Do something like that. And then I can increase and decrease like the transparency and other things like that to customize it so that if someone did try to steal it, they wouldn't have the final version without having to pay for it first. So a few things to remember there when you're working with this kind of stuff. Make sure you're protecting your work and that it's not getting stolen by the masses, because unfortunately people will rip you off with in a heartbeat. So anyway, to change the timecode display position, we can click and drag the pink anchor point. That's at the top corner of the effect preview monitor. So if you wanted to move your timecode display, we could slide it around by grabbing this little pink anchor point. Say you wanted to put it on a cross section at the top. You want to put your watermark above the watermark that's at the bottom here for some reason. You have options. Again, don't be too obstructive with it. The point of this is to review the material, and if you're covering up the stuff that this is actually supposed to be affecting, then you're ruining your sequence. So do as I say, not as I do. And then the fifth thing, optionally, you could enable additional displays and adjust the parameters. For example, to display the source time code or the source clip names, as well as the time code. So if we wanted to, we could enable those clip names. Come on. This scroll isn't working very well today. Right now we're set to time code. We could do, I'll leave it there. What else could we do? Current time. Source clip name. So this is source clip name, but we could add additional displays to make sure we still have our time code on there. So anyway, yeah, options there. All right, a quick note from Avid: you can isolate the timecode burn-in effect to a section of the sequence by using the edit in the filler track. So if you wanted to, that's an option. As mentioned, you can use the text group to add notes, or you can use it to add a watermark, such as for review only. So I put Prof. Harris. You could put review only. But that would probably be in all caps, and or the company name, or like I said, whatever editing company you're working with. To add a watermark though to our timecode burn-in effect, we could enable the text group. This text group by default, let me shrink all this. The text group by default is at the bottom of your timecode display, and with this enabled, we can expand the appearance subgroup to increase the font size or pixel parameter. Well, I already did all this. I already showed you guys a lot of this. We can also expand the subgroup, the background in the subgroup. So we could change the background opacity. So you could have some sliders here. So again, so it's less distracting but still visible. You could change the color. We can go into the text subgroup. We could lower the opacity. We could set that between different points. Plenty of options. And if we wanted to move the watermark, again, we can move the pink anchor or the anchor frames that these are set for, so that it's not obstructing too much of our actual review session video. Awesome. So those are some settings there. I think we can also, what else can we do? Yeah, we can change the font as well. So if you wanted to change the font to like Times New Roman, or what else could we do? What is this? Review only. Fancy. Perfect. All right, so now again, we've got options there. All right, let's keep moving. All right, adding a timecode burn-in into a sequence works well when reviewers evaluate the program on their own. But what about live review sessions? So, using the timecode window is where that's what's going to come into play now. So during a live review session, a timecode burn-in in the timecode display at the top of the Composer window can be hard to see. So Media Composer includes a free-floating timecode window tool. This offers multiple benefits. So one, you can place the window anywhere in the interface. You can also make the display text big so reviewers can see it from far away through a smaller remote or through a smaller remote setup. You can also display multiple lines of timecode and other tracked data. So this is a really nice feature. To open the timecode window, we can go to Tools, then Timecode. Where's my mouse? There it is, Tools. We can come down to Timecode. Where is it? I'm always blind with this stuff. Timecode window. All right, so then we have our timecode window. It comes up. It's this guy right here. This little guy. Nice. The timecode window displays a timecode at the position where the position indicator's location is in either the active source or record monitor by default. By default, also, the timecode window opens with the font size that matches the Composer window's timecode display, which is great for editing, but not for review. Thankfully, the timecode window contains a menu with options for font size, adding additional timecode displays, and more. To customize the timecode window display, we can click the display line in the timecode window. And then once we've clicked our display line in our timecode window, we can select an option from the menu that appears. For example, the size greater than 60. So let's go to size. We can go 60 or 70. And then boom, we've got this big old beefer. Now I got this giant timecode display for everybody sitting in the way back of the room. What else can we do? Optionally, we could add another timecode display. So we could click the display line again, choose add line. Where is it? Add line. And then it's going to, by default, be set to duration. And if we wanted to change this, we could simply click that line and we could pick one of our other sequence timecodes. Remain, absolute, in and out, duration, master, whatever you like. And then if you've added too many for some reason and you want to remove one, you can just click again and you can do remove line and that will disappear. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. What else we got? Besides providing a big timecode display, you can enhance the review experience by playing back the sequence in a larger distraction-free monitor. So this is awesome, and this is called using the full screen playback option. For in-person review sessions, an external monitor may suffice. For remote sessions, you may want to use the full screen playback feature. Here's how this works. To activate the full screen playback, we can go to Composer, Full Screen Playback, or we can hit Control-Shift-F or Shift-Command-F on Mac. I prefer Shift-Command-F. That's boom, easy peasy.
Oh, look who's keeping the tooth fairy busy.
You could say that.
And boom, we've got it. This looks so bad. But we've got it. We've got it all set up, right? We've got review only. We got our timecode burn-in. We got the clip's name as it plays. It's showing which ones we're looking at. So that's nice. Command-Shift-F. We'll exit out of that. It's also nice that my computer's working today, that it's playing the video. All right, what else? Once activated, the monitor fills the screen, so you can use the keyboard to navigate playback and playback a sequence. For example, the space bar, let's reopen this, so Command-Shift-F with me. That's the way to get this back up. We can use the space bar to play, pause and play. We can also use the JKL to shuffle. So let's use that now. We could speed up. We could go in reverse motion. We could pause with K. We could hold K. That's going to reset the sequence apparently. Hold K and I could tap L and it's going to play at I think a quarter speed. I could spam L again. We could speed it up really quickly. So yeah, you got options if you want. JKL. And to escape escape to toggle between the source and record monitors. So if I hit escape, I don't have anything loaded in my source monitor, but if I did, then that would appear here. So I could do full screen playback with the source monitor as well. To close the full screen playback monitor, we can either click anywhere on the screen. So you could just click. So I could just boop, and boom, we're out of it. Or what else can you do? Or you could repeat the same command, which is Command Shift F or Control Shift F, and that's going to access out of that full screen playback. Let's load something in my my record monitor here really quickly, or my source monitor really quickly, so that I can show you that real quick. Command Shift F, and we can see that's in the source monitor, and I can switch to my record monitor and then back to the source monitor. Command Shift F, and we're right back out. If you work on a 2-monitor system, you can control which monitor full screen playback appears in. To do this, we can open the settings by either going to File Settings or pressing Control Shift equals or Command Shift or Shift Command equals. Then once we're in our settings, we're going to click the User tab, and under User, we can press the F key to quickly go down to full screen playback. And then in our full screen playback settings, let me double click this to open those. We can drag the full screen playback settings to the desired monitor. We can select monitor button and click OK. So what did that say and what did that mean? Essentially what it was saying is we would move this little window to, let's say I had a second monitor, I would bring it to that second monitor. Oh, and then I could hit this button, select monitor, and that would set it. Let me go back because I don't want to do that. And then I could set it to be that. So if I hit select monitor, it's when I hit Command Shift F to do full screen playback, it's going to appear on this screen here. Cool. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, so quick note here from Avid. If you go to full screen playback and it looks a little bit washed out, you can, we can select the display color space and then do record 709 full range, and that's going to give us back that quality. All right, as mentioned, you can use the full screen playback even when working with an external video display. When placed over the composer window and timeline, some editors find this provides a distraction-free viewing experience, so they don't have to worry about that. One caveat is that full screen playback isn't available when an external display is connected to Avid artists in or out, or a third-party alternative. So that's unfortunate. To temporarily disable the hardware connection, you can use the full screen playback. Click the HWSW toggle button in the timeline palette. So what is our HS? That's this button here. So it's inactive right now, but if it was active, we could disable it. Then we wouldn't have to worry about that patching to a different screen when we're trying to work with what we're trying to work with. Okay, once toggled on, full screen playback becomes available in the tools menu. All right, sequence review questions. So here, this is moving on now. I love how Avid just loves to move on. All right, moving on. Sequence review questions. As you review your own work or colleague's program, you'll want to keep some questions in mind, such as the following. Do shot selection and editing pace support the story? Do the edits seem appropriate and align with the program's style? Do any of the edits or shots seem out of place or distracting? Are there distracting or inappropriate items in the background, such as a production equipment, an unacceptable logo on a shirt, or a Starbucks cup that need to be removed or fixed? Does the picture or sound contain noticeable flaws? Do audio and video stay in sync? Do the music and sound effects support the scene's emotion? Are there continuity errors? And is this scene even working? These review questions may vary for different production types or editing phases, but this is a good place to start when you're doing your review. You're sitting down, you're going to do all this. Let me pull that up on screen so you can screenshot that. So when you're doing your own review sessions, you can ask yourself the same questions. And here are those review questions for your viewing and experience going forward. All right, setting up for output now. Setting up for output. Output is a detail-oriented process, regardless of the editing phase. When outputting a file for a reviewer, you'll want to ensure it plays back correctly online or when downloaded to their system. During final delivery, prep, and output, you'll want to make sure that you adhere to all specified content and technical requirements. This will get you fired very quickly if you cannot follow the specified content and technical requirements. So let's dig into this crucial process so you know what to expect. Most broadcasters require specific elements precede a program submitted before the broadcast or streaming. They publish their requirements in detailed delivery specifications in documents, and you can always ask for that documentation in advance. You should always ask and know that information in advance. I talked about this before in other lessons, so I'm reinforcing that now. Moving along, understanding delivery specifications. A delivery specification is a list of requirements that a video must meet for a broadcaster or distributor to accept the program. It typically includes a file format, codec, frame dimensions, frame rate, and data rates, and they may include content specs. For example, a specified duration of the video black at the beginning and end of the sequence. Every distribution channel, broadcast, network, and cable television, cinema, and online digital have specific requirements, and the delivery specs vary from one channel to another. For example, PBS specs differ from BBC, and Netflix specs differ from Hulu. So you got to keep all this in mind, and you again keep it at the front of your to-do list. This is some basic stuff. Don't mess this up. It makes you look unprofessional. During the MC110 course, you explored the delivery specs for YouTube and Vimeo. As you learned, you need to ensure you follow those specs to ensure your program looks, sounds, and plays back as intended. Power tip here, never ever assume what those specs are. Always ask for the delivery specs and get clarification if needed. It's far less scary to ask than finding out that your program was rejected because you didn't meet the delivery requirements. Again, it will be rejected if you have the wrong codec. So let's minimize stress by looking into some common content requirements. Adding video black at the beginning of a sequence, adding video black at the end of the sequence, and changing the sequence's start timecode. All right, we'll start by adding filler to the start of the sequence. If you add a video black to the beginning of the sequence, you can use either filler or something else. We're going to use filler today. So since this is a common practice, Media Composer includes a couple of options for this. If the video black requirements vary by project, you may want to use the composer window method. You used this in the Jacuzzi projects during the MC101 course, so let's review this now. To access and add filler from the composer window, we can right-click the source monitor, and we can do load filler. We're going to set now in and out marks to create a pre-specified duration, for example 15 seconds, to meet the PBS 2020 program submission requirements. So let's set our in and out. So we can set an in, and we'll set our out right at 15 seconds. And you can use your time codes to get that set up. All right, now we're going to make sure that all my tracks are selected and all my source tracks are selected so that when I add this, moving my position indicator to the beginning of my timeline, if I hit V, it's going to add that. It's going to splice in that 15 seconds of filler right at the beginning. So now I got that 15 seconds of black filler. If you use the same filler duration for all or most projects, you may prefer to use the timeline method. So this was the composer method. This is where you load it in the source monitor by doing load filler. But let's look at the timeline method now. To access and add filler from the timeline, we can right-click the timeline and choose timeline settings, or we can activate that timeline settings by doing Control+ equals or Command equals after selecting our timeline. So let me select my timeline. I'm going to come to the end. That's where I'm going to add filler now. I'm going to add it to the back half. With my timeline selected, I can right click and do settings, or I could just hit Command equals. Now we got my timeline settings window open. In the timeline settings edit tab, we can adjust the start filler duration field. For example, 15 seconds, and then click OK. So if we go to edit, and now we can set the start filler duration to 15 by default. Oh, 1, 5, we'll backspace to 2. Boom, now all we have to do is hit OK. And then if we want, now we can right click the timeline and choose add filler at start. So let me remove the filler that I put at the beginning. Right click my timeline. I come up here to add filler and then add start. And then boom, it's going to add that 15 seconds of filler at the beginning. Looks like it added a little bit more than 15 seconds. But I'm sure that we can trust the process on this. Let's try and undo that. Is there? No. Let's try and add filler at position. We do add filler at position. So that should be 15 seconds now. Let's see here. Yep, 15. Okay. Well, if add at start doesn't work, then you can do add at position. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Sweet. As you can see on my screen, the sequence time code now starts at the correct time code, 15 seconds inside, instead of the default. So more on changing the start time code in a moment. But if you use this method, check the new start time code and first video's time code. You may need to make adjustments. For example, this works fine for what we're doing now with a 25 FPS or 23.98 FPS project. But if we were working with a 60 FPS and 29.97 FPS projects, we might need to delete the excess filler for those projects. So since this method involves adjusting the user settings, you only need to change the start filler duration setting once, and it remains in place for the future of all sequences, because again, that is a user setting, so that's attached to my user. So now when I do add 15 seconds or add filler, it's always going to add that 15 seconds of filler at the beginning. Adding filler at the end of the sequence requires some creativity though. So adding filler at the end, what if you need to add video black at the end of your sequence? In this case, filler isn't an option. That said, the solution is creative yet simple. To add video black at the end of your sequence, we can load a video clip in the source monitor, preferably a video only clip, but any clip works fine. So let's find some clips here that we could load into our source monitor. I don't think we have any video only clips. Oh, this one's a video only clip. Okay, sweet. We will use this. So now we got our video only clip loaded in our source monitor. We're going to set in and out marks to match the predetermined destination. So we need 15 seconds. So I'll set in at the beginning, and we'll come over here. We'll slide along until we see 15 seconds in. Come over here. And we'll just shoot for roughly 15. 15:03 works fine. I'm looking at the center duration there. So, all right, I got my roughly 15 seconds. We're going to enable the source and record V1 tracks and disable the audio tracks if the clip includes audio tracks. So we'll enable the source and record V1 tracks. Check, check. And then we'll splice in and overwrite the clip at the end of the sequence. So hit V. Oh, not there. The end of the sequence, come over here, we'll hit V. So now we've spliced in this shot to the end of our sequence. It has no audio. Nice. And then we're going to drag and drop the Avid Titler Plus effect in the title category. This is real creative. Let's go to the title category. Avid Titler Plus. We'll drag and drop that on here. And now we're going to enable the black background if it turns green. So if we go to background and enable it, we can double click this and we can change the color to black. Now it's all black. And then we can double click the background color box if we want to change it to a different color instead. And then boom, we've essentially created it. So now I can close all these and bada bing, bada boom, we have filler. There's no audio to this shot. There's no video. Well, there is video, but it's hidden underneath this Avid Titler Plus. We've got that 15 seconds of black at the end of our video now. Notice the timeline segment gets renamed to filler when you apply the Avid Titler Plus. So we can see this says filler now. I could even move this to a higher track if I wanted to. But When we're dragging and dropping the Avid Titler Plus effect icon, this is like a default setting because Media Composer recognizes that what we're trying to do is add that filler at the end. So let's review one more potential delivery requirement that you may be required to do, and that is changing the start time code. So did you know it's common broadcast standard to set the program start time code to the top of the hour? For example, in the United States, programs typically start at 1 hour or 01000000. In many European countries, programs must begin at 10 hours or 10 or 10000000. Notice the two time codes above vary slightly, one with semicolons and the other with colons. These two formats indicate the drop frame versus a non-drop frame time code, respectively, as defined in the SMPTE spec. So if you're a nerd, there's some notes for you on that. But to meet requirements, you may need to adjust your sequence's start time code. So the first video starts at the specified time. What does that mean? That means you need to subtract the leader's duration. For example, the 15 seconds of filler, if your delivery specifications require the video to start at that 1 hour mark, you change the start time code to 59 minutes 45 seconds. That's why the add filler at the start option is lovely, because it does that math for you automatically. So if you need to change the start time code manually, we can open a bin containing the sequence and then select the text view. So let's go to our bins. We'll go to student lessons, and I can't remember, what are we working on? We're in 14.1. Oh, I shouldn't be messing with this. I should have made a duplicate of this sequence. That was a mistake. Let me duplicate the sequence. And then I'm going to try and undo like everything we did today. See if I can't get this back to base. Turning on and off the grid over and over and over again. Come on. Yikes. Okay. Well, I think I just added filler. I could delete this track if I want. Delete track. Don't worry, I made a duplicate of this. Let's rename this lesson 14. All right, let me. Okay, all right. Back here. Back at it again. We got our stuff loaded up. Okay, so now we can click the sequences start column. Okay, so we're gonna open the bin containing the sequence and select text view. So we're already in text view. And then we're gonna click the sequences start column field. So if we drag this out just a bit and we come over to, where is it? There it is, start column field. We can enter the new value and then press enter. So if I wanted to change this to something else, I could. I'm going to leave it the way it is just for now. And then we can click OK, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to change the start time code? That message will appear. So let's do that. We'll make it 1 hour, 10 minutes. We'll hit OK. And then say, are you sure you want to change the start time code? We'll hit OK, and that changes that start time code. And it's really that easy. The book recommends, obviously, if we were going to do the 15 seconds of filler at the beginning, which we actually do have. So why don't I change that to reflect what the book is trying to tell me to do here. So we'll change this to 1 hour. 59 minutes. So 59 and 45 seconds. 45. And I'll hit OK. And we'll hit OK. And now when we move our position indicator here in our timeline, it should start where they want it to. I don't think it actually does, but you know what I'm trying to do. You get it. Okay, as you can see on my screen, we only need to type the first colon and no drop frames time code, or semicolon drop frames time code. For example, we could type 005900. So if you wanted to add all that information, if you wanted to be particular about it with the drop frame time code, you could. All right. Big chunk of information that Avid wants to let you know. So I'm going to pull that up on screen now for you to read through yourself. And here you go. Here's that information about color bars and color tone. Not color tone, creating tone. So read this over now. Give yourself a second to familiarize yourself with this information, and we'll keep moving on. All right, let's move on now to final technical preparations. So before exporting your sequence, you'll want to take steps to prepare it for consistent quality and headache-free output process. So here are some technical recommendations from Avid. Number one, make sure all your sequences or your sequence media is online. So you could double check this by selecting clip color from the timeline's fast menu and then ensure offline is checked by default. So you can just, or you could just thumb through your videos, make sure nothing's offline by switching views. You're going to quickly see, it'll say media offline. If you're working with smaller projects, this is a more realistic thing to do. But additionally, like it says, you could do the clip color from the timeline's fast menu and ensure offline is checked by default. Number two, if you want to archive the source sequence before making any alterations, duplicate the sequence. So you'll place the duplicate into another bin and prepare the duplication or the duplicate for export. So make sure you're duplicating your sequences so you're not losing anything if something goes wrong. Number three, if your sequence contains audio clips with different sample rates, change this. Right-click your sequence in the bin and then choose Change Sample Rate and then set this specified sample rate to match whatever your project's supposed to be. And then number four, we have, since Media Composer includes current pan and level adjustments in the file you output, check and adjust all pan and audio levels before export. So make sure you're not your audio is not all set to the left side, the left ear. Okay, all right. So there's a few notes there. Let's keep moving into working with export templates. So now that you're prepared a sequence for final delivery, it's time to output it. So let's build on the process that you used while exporting the Rock Climber sequence for YouTube upload during the MC110 course. So as you might suspect, Media Composer includes multiple options for streamlining the export process and ensuring your finished program meets technical delivery specifications. To output your sequence, you can create and use export templates. You can automate the output to multiple formats with the Send To feature. We can create and write file directories to a device such as an XD-CAM disk or a P2 card. And we can use the AMA file export to export a specialized AS11 or AS02 bundle. If you don't know what all that meant, that's okay. You don't have to understand what all that means, and I'm sure as you continue to work with the program and really in the world of video editing, it'll make more sense to you going forward. But if you need to output to a tape, you'll want to attach the in/output hardware and then use the digital cut tool. That's covered more in the Avid Editing Professionals course. So more on that if you come back in the future, and I've done that in the future. But this section focuses on working with export templates. So Media Composer includes several export templates you can access and review in a couple ways. So let's get to our export settings. So in the settings windows, user tab, so we'll hit Command equal, we'll open our, that's our bin settings. Let's just go to file settings. That's a quick way to do it. And then if we go to our user settings and then we go to export settings, so if we come down to export, I can double click the export. It's going to pull up the export settings. Through the export settings menu, we can export in the export as dialog box. So we can select the export as here, and then we have different export options. Now, depending on how your system's set up or what kind of exports you've got available, you're going to see different lists here. But to simplify the list, we can remove templates if we want, if there's things that we don't want to remove. This isn't necessarily export settings as or export as. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if I close all this real quick, if I go to export my actual project, we get to export settings, and this is a list, should be a larger list here of your saved export settings. And you can delete export settings if you don't want some. And the way that essentially you would do that is you could go to File, Settings, and then in our export, it doesn't seem like there's another way to do this, but in the book it says that there is. Okay, so I've been doing some fiddling around, and I know that you can delete different export options here. So if there was one that we didn't want, for instance, we've got a duplicate here. So I'm going to delete this duplicate. I can just hit delete, and that will remove it there. Additionally, you can restore to default if you've got one that's messed up. But you can have all kinds of custom set export settings, and you can create new ones when you are going through the export process. This is a little bit different from the book, so I do recommend that you look back at the book. I don't know why my interface at times is it just seems to be different, but it is. So do with that information what you please. But we're gonna keep moving here. Avid has some notes here for you. Your list of export settings may differ from the ones listed in the book, like mine are here. Mine are different, obviously. And then with Media Composer 2020.4 release, with that release, Avid ended its reliance on the QuickTime libraries. So if you double click an export setting and a QuickTime is not available message appears, you can remove that template. So quick notes there. All right, let's quickly review how to create and use an export template. So before saving a template, you'll test the settings as you did in the 720p YouTube preset in the MC110 course. This may mean exporting a small section of a long form program before you actually export the whole thing. So before we create an export template, be sure to verify the delivery specifications for where this media is intended, and then prepare to export a test sequence as follows. So first thing we're going to do is prepare the sequence for output using the following as a reference. We could set in and out marks to export just a small section and to verify that it is where we want it. I'm going to export from here to there, so I'll hit Command. I'm going to tab to here. I'm going to set an input here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to set an output point here. And now we've got a section that I'd like to export. Let me click my topmost. All right. Now, after we set our in and out marks, to export the entire sequence, or we could clear the marks if we wanted to export the entire sequence, but if we didn't, we'd leave our marks set in. If we wanted to, we could use in and out regions by setting the beginning, the first frame of our sequence, and the last frame. That's another option. To export all tracks, we can either select all tracks in blue or ensure that all tracks enabled but disabled buttons are turned on in blue in the track control panel. So all our tracks are currently turned on and selected, so we've got that. We can right click in our record monitor and we can come down to export like I did earlier. And then in the export as dialog box option, we can choose, in the export settings button, we could choose options, and that's going to open some settings for this that we can modify. We can choose the appropriate option from the export as menu. Let me try that. So if I wanted to, I don't have the export as drop down here. There is no export as. I just have export settings. I think the book, I have save as, but the book is being a little bit different. Oh. I still just have export settings. It doesn't get any longer than this, and I don't have export as. But we can still click options here, and we can customize this for output. And then if we wanted to save this export as a template, we could hit the Save As button here. It's going to prompt us to rename this. So I could do 720 YouTube version 2. Let me make that capital V, version 2. And then I could click OK. And then I'm going to come back in here and make sure that I use selected tracks, use marks, because I only want to export this small region. Project raster, we can leave all this correct. And then I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit save again. I'm going to save this to my desktop though, so I can quickly save a small portion of my sequence here. Now if I come to my desktop, you should see the name of the project. There we go. And then should be able to hit play here. So we verified that the export settings work and that the video is in the proper format that we wanted. We exported again just this small region, and that would be something that you'd want to do before you exported the whole project. Awesome. There's a couple other steps that I breezed over, but I should probably head back to. So yes, we have use mark set. That was one of the things that I did. Use selected tracks, and we're going to include inactive audio tracks as well. Make sure that that's selected as well. What else? We can check and adjust the settings in each section to meet delivery specifications. So we've got all those different settings here that you would adjust before you export. And then when finished with setup, you can hit the save button and export as dialog box and save and export and save. And then it's going to go to the destination folder that you set. And then again, you've successfully exported part of your sequence that you should then be confident that the whole export should work. Quick note here from Avid, you can also export a sequence by right-clicking in the bin and then choosing Output Export to File. So that's another option. Once the export concludes, you'll check the file. The image above shows, or if you were following me on screen, the settings that meet some of the broadcast delivery specs. Tell you what, I'm going to pull that up on screen so that you have reference for that now. And here are those some of those settings that you would want for your broadcast delivery. Cool. All right, once you verify your export settings work, you can save it as a template. I showed you earlier how to save it as a template, so we're going to move on past this. Awesome. All right, Media Composer adds the new settings to our export settings, so when we go to export again, that's going to appear in our export settings dropdown. I showed that to you earlier as well. What if you regularly output each sequence multiple times? For example, once to meet delivery specs and a second time to create high-res final copy for yourself. Let's look at how this works. So the video levels options in the color, this is a note from Avid. The video level option in the color space section often causes confusion. Always follow delivery specs. If the documentation doesn't include this, choose Keep at Legal Range for broadcast and YouTube upload. Choose Scale from Legal to Full Range for RGB projects and videos for download and playback on computer monitors and mobile devices. This is an important thing to note. Avid's going to want to test you on that. You might be confused as to what I'm talking about. So let me quickly get back to my export settings here. If we go to Options and then we come down to Color Spec, we have Keep as Legal Range and Scale from Legal to Full Range. So one more time, if your documentation doesn't include this, choose the Keep at Legal Range for broadcast and YouTube. Keep at Legal Range is what we want for YouTube. And if you're doing it for computer and mobile devices, you're going to do Scale from Legal to Full Range. So keep that in mind going forward. And again, we can save our templates. I just showed you how to do that. And then those templates that you save appear in this list here for future use. All right, using the Send To option. Using the Send To option, when you use the export option, the default one, you need to repeat the export process for each file type. The Send To option lets you automate clip or sequence output to multiple file types with one template. For example, a file optimized for broadcast and another for streaming services. And Send To includes useful presets for outputting files for Pro Tools sessions. So let's look at how to create a Send To template and then use it. So to create a Send To template for a sequence, we're going to select the record monitor or the sequence in the bin. We'll go to File, Output, Send To, and then Make New Template. So we go to, let's see, we're going to select our record monitor, boom, or our sequence in a bin. And then we'll go to File, Output, and then we'll go to Send To and Make New Template. All right, now we're going to get the window. Our Send To Make New Template window appears. If a QuickTime is not available message appears, just click OK and move on. In the Send To Make New Template dialog box, we can enable the export setting 1 and either select the select the export template for the export setting 1 menu. Okay, what am I saying? Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to say yes to export 1, and then I can choose an export type. So I'm going to use untitled for this, and then I can select the second one if I want. And we can use maybe the default preset, or we could use YouTube 720. If I want to customize these, I can go into options. That's going to open up that specific export settings options, and I can scroll through here and manually update that and then continue from there. So now I'm set up right now to do 2 simultaneous exports. I have one that's titled Untitled, and I have one that's titled 720 YouTube. Tell you what, let's do a different one. We'll do Egan 103 comp YouTube. So now we have both, and we can see they're both MP4. The use marks are turned off. Tell you what, let's go in each one, and I'm going to set the use marks to turn on and use selected tracks so that that's set properly. I'll hit save on that, and I'll change the options on the other one. Use marks, use selected tracks. I'll hit save on that. And now it's set to export, again, only this region of my timeline that I have set. So that's super easy. And then we can click the Save as Template option button, or sorry, Save as Template button, and give the template a meaningful name. So we can set Save as Template, and we can title this template Dual Export Test. There we go. Well, test. All right, so now we have that. I'll hit Save, and we can save that as a template option. And then we can hit the OK button. And boom, it's going to now export both of our mini segments that we've made. Quick note here, or just a reminder from Avid, the QuickTime is not available message may appear because Media Composer ended its reliance on the QuickTime libraries. So clicking OK grants access to send to make new template dialog box. So another quick note there. So after you save the template, you can press cancel or then go to File Output and then Send to, and then you can make a new Send to template from that list. So, one or more of your files exported already exist. You want to overwrite the file and generate the file name. Yeah, overwrite it, sure. And then now we should have 2 versions of this short part of this sequence sent somewhere. I do not know. But if we wanted to, later on, we could come up here to, what was it? If we go to File, then we go to Output, we can go to Send to, and now we have the dual export test as an option. So we have a saved template that's going to help us instantly export this in 2 formats again. So that's super easy. Cool. And then once you set up your Send to template, it's ready for use. You can access it in a few ways. We could right-click our record monitor and choose the Send to, and then the template name. We could click the clip or sequence in the bin, go to File, Output, Send to, like I just showed you. We could right-click the clip or sequence in the bin or in the record monitor and choose Output, Send to, template name. And then once the Send to template dialog box opens, we can fill in the file name field, click the Set button to change the destination for the exported files. If needed, you can adjust the export settings for the 1 and export settings for the 2, the second one, and then we can just click OK, and Media Composer outputs the files automatically. So once complete, you can check your files and ensure that they play back smoothly. I don't actually know where I sent those 2 files, or those 2 exports, so those are lost to the ages, and I don't particularly care. But you should check your videos after export, obviously, because if they don't play or they're incorrect, that's going to be a problem. And with that, let's wrap up this lesson with some template and output tips. So you can simplify the Send to template creation if you create the test export templates first. So once you set up all you need to do is select an export setting from the export setting 1 and 2 menus, and then click the Save As Template button. So I did just do a setting. I just did a quick test by exporting part of my sequence, not my whole sequence. And then now that I have that template saved, I could use that template again for my whole sequence if I wanted to move my in and out marks or just choose export entire sequence. Second tip is if you plan to use the Send to template to output a high-res copy of your sequence and use a third-party application to prepare it for final delivery, you can enable auto launch. Then choose an application to launch after export. If the app you need isn't listed, you can choose Add Item to the menu and locate that app on your system. So what did I just say? Essentially, you can make it so it opens immediately after export, and you can choose a program. You can set a program for that. If you plan to create an export template or to use a Send to template for the MXFOP1A file type. You'll go to export settings or export as section, then great, because you could choose from a long list of video compression options. Keep in mind, though, that Media Composer uses the project's raster dimension during export. So double check this before output. For example, if you plan to output your Ultra HD 3840 by 2160 sequence as an MXFOP1A at 3840 2160 and DNX HQ file, you'd ensure the preset menu in the Format Settings tabs is set to Ultra HD option before you output your sequence. Otherwise, things could get messed up. So what on earth did I just say? Essentially, what I'm saying is under File Settings, if you go to Format, you're going to want to make sure that under Preset, if you are outputting an Ultra HD setting, that you are going to your HD or your other high-res formats. You're making sure that you have them set to an Ultra HD format. Otherwise, it won't appear properly or won't export properly in full HD. Okay, and then if you plan to create export templates or use send to templates for a MOV or MP4 file types, you can ignore the Format Settings tab and make all necessary selections in the Export Settings dialog box. So this doesn't apply to you if you're using the MP4 or MOV file export types. I typically use the MP4 because that's the format people typically choose or want from me as a final deliverable. For example, your source, if your source is 3840 by 2160, but the format setting is 720p at 23.976 frames per second, and you need to output your sequence as an MP4 at 3840 2160 DNX HQ video file, you can select the Ultra HD 3840 2140 preset in the UME file export dialog box in the image section. This tip also applies to the Apple ProRes H.264, etc. So you don't have to. Again, you can just do it right within your UME export, so you don't have to do anything else there. Okay, I know that all sounds very confusing, but don't forget to get into Avid and start playing around with these features and functions yourself. The more you work with this, the more projects that you export, the better off you'll be and the more you'll understand it. I apologize if this lesson was a lot of just technical jargon. That is the nature of this program a lot of times, but we're here for it. We're here to learn it, and I'm here to help you as best I can, one step at a time. To my YouTube viewers, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And to my students, I will happily see you back in the classroom. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.